Akira?
Oh, gosh, that's it's tough. I mean, I came from a mixed race family. I'm half Japanese, half Irish, with a bissel of Jew in there, you know, and so for me, it's quite normal to see people of different colors. Everyone interrelates, and my parents are mixed marriage, intermarriage, which is a big thing right now. I've chosen to stop compensating for some of my, my Japanese-ness and just being who I am.
Can you say more about that?
Well, I just think when you come into the Jewish community, you can end up assimilating too. I think that we have to acknowledge that, is that I no longer want to compensate how I did in the outside world. So coming to the Jewish community, I became aware of that as well, that it's a form of assimilation, that you come in and all of a sudden you have to behave a certain way. And I've chose, not to do
We're
that
black.
anymore. Right,
Or
black,
black.
or, the tzitzis hanging out, or the, which doesn't, it's religious observance, but it's, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily make you who you are.
Yeah, I've been told I've spoken to Jews of color across the denominational, and they all have issues with racism. But I've definitely found that it's very easy for people to say, you've got to stop identifying with you being Dominican. You've got to stop being Spanish.
You have to look a certain way.
To cook Jewish foods. Jewish foods. I have people come over and I serve them plantains, which is a very a staple of Dominican culture, and people look horrified, like why are you serving this on Shabbos? What's wrong with you? And then but if I don't eat the gefilte fish, if I don't eat the bagels and lox, I'm suddenly not being Jewish.
Right. And there was a, like I converted Hasidic, so most of my experiences in the Jewish community were with the ultra-Orthodox world. Yiddish-speaking world where uniformity, you want to talk about uniformity? Everyone's wearing a uniform. That level of uniformity. So there's that, that idea that you're supposed to, give up your black identity and, transform that into sublime into a Jewish identity. With me, I noticed a big difference was in speech and in vocal pattern and things like that. Looking at the way Yiddish is set up and looking at the way that the Orthodox vernacular is set up, it's a group of people who were kept off from learning written English, standard English, so therefore they came up with their own way of talking to each other. But when I do the same thing that, speak African American vernacular, that's ghetto, that's something you should give up. If you're going to speak in a broken English, speak it with Yiddish. If you're going to speak in broken English, right?
My parents came here very young, came to America very young, and they spoke to me in English and in Spanish. It's very important for me that my kids learn Spanish, and I've been told Spanish is not important. Right. Jewish stuff is important.
Right, and I think it goes back to the compensating piece, is that what I've learned, my kids are going to know they're also Japanese, they're also going to know that they have Irish background, and they're Jewish as well. I think all of it's important.
The question is, what is the as well? That's what I'd like to know. What is the as well? I grew up Jewish. My emergence experience in terms of going to college and embracing my African American identity fully, considering that I had never had an opportunity to do that, going to yeshiva from the time I was 4. Mm-hmm. When I did that, what I realized was that there's such a thing as letting your hair down. When you don't know what it's like to not have to always question what as well is. There's this part of me and there's this part of me. There's this part of me and then there's this part of me. There's the Jewish part of me and then there's the African American part of me. No, there is only one Yavila. There's only one. And Yavila gets to walk through the world with all of that intact all the time. So being a part of the Jewish community should never be an as well for us or for any of our children. It should be an opportunity for all of us to just be.
Exactly.
And the only way that's going to happen is if we claim that for ourselves. Because my daughter now is a third-generation Jew in a world that is still questioning her Jewishness. Mm-hmm. I can no longer wait for the Jewish community to give her her sense of identity. I have to start working on that in our house and tell her, you be who you are, no matter who you are with, no matter when it is, no matter what time it is, no matter what shul you go to, you be yourself and let the chips fall where they may.
I think you're pointing out that, part of it is internalizing these this outside, this whiteness, this white beauty standard, this idea. I mean, in the book, The Color of Jews, she talks about, the Sephardi girls are trying to look Ashkenazi, and the Ashkenazi girls are trying to look white. They're, in the Asian community, Asian women are getting their eyes done to look Western. In the Jewish community, talking about nose jobs. But I've also had, I've had women come up to me and they're like, I love the way you wear your hair. I've been straightening it my whole life.
My
because
wife has
I
had
wanna-
Japanese hair straightening.
Right, I want to look.
And no one itemizes their identity the way I think that Jews of color are supposed to. People look at, ask questions like, so how could you be a Jew and a person of color? Like, how does that impact your life? And I'm just like, I wake up, I look in the mirror, I put on a yarmulke. That's how it, it impacts my life.
When I go out and speak, I mean, one of the questions I got asked once was, if the Dominican Republic, Israel, and America went to war, which would you choose? Which would you choose?
But now, going back to not wanting to be too angry and not wanting to be too confrontational, like I was at a wedding one time in Montreal, and I'd come from Brooklyn, and the guy asks me, one of the guys at the wedding asks me, where are you from? He really honestly wanted to know if I was from Montreal or not. And I was like, what do you mean, where am I from? If you want to know, my father's Ethiopian, my mother's Puerto Rican, and I came from Baltimore, and I start going on this whole spiel. He's like, whoa. Because you're just so
a lot
used
of times
to
they ask, where are you from? Where are you really from?
Well, yeah, where are you really
and your
from?
mother and your grandmother.
And your grandma,
and your
yeah, where are
great-grandmother.
your grandparents from? I mean, it got to that point at one point because I just say, where are you from? New York. I've lived in New York my whole life. Like, I was born in New York.
And we can't talk about this without talking about conversion. For us, conversion takes on a different meaning. It's like, what gave you your right to exist in my space, as opposed to, oh, that's an interesting thing about you when it comes to white converts.
I've been on both sides, and like for instance, it was easier for me to deal with the questions like, "Are you Jewish?" when I was in the conversion process, and then I would want to tell you that I'm converting and I'm doing that. But when I went to Israel, and I looked around, and there everybody assumed I was Israeli. Suddenly, I am what Israelis look like, and nobody questions my Jewishness. Nobody wonders where I'm from or anything. And I realized it was good not to have every conversation open up with are you Jewish? What's your background? Where are your parents from?
There's a really important thing that I've been thinking about, what you said about pushing the issue forward or confrontation. I'm wondering what's the balance between confrontation and not confronting or educating lightly. Does it always have to be confrontational?
I think it's
softly.
like Yuvila said, it really comes down to that ability to just assert yourself, let your hair down. You're not in a war. You're just trying to exist, and be yourself just like anyone else is.
What if we took away the term Jews of color? I mean, do you
I
think?
think we could take away the term Jews of color if there wasn't this invisible, unheard, deafening, resounding Jews are white behind it. Jews of color only came to be because the equal sign between Jew and whiteness is all over our history books, it's all over our institutions, it's all over our magazines, it's all over the way in which we show who is and who isn't a official Sabra, who is or who isn't an Israeli, who got immigration status quicker. There's all this history is what we're looking at here. And so if we want to be Jews, then let's just go ahead and be just Jews. But let's do the work that comes with that. There's a lot of work that we have to do as Jews to get to that point. All of us.
I also feel like people don't take issue with people calling themselves, I'm an Israeli Jew, I'm a Yemenite Jew, I'm an
Hungarian
Ethiopian Jew,
Polish.
I'm a Hungarian Jew. How is that different than me calling myself a Dominican Jew?
This is happening within the larger conversation about race relations in America. We're having a much more intricate conversation about race today than we were, let's say, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, when it was really about who's getting put in front of the fire hydrant and who's getting able to go into the white entrance. Now it's a lot more subtle. Racism is a lot more subtle.